Hi everybody, my name is William Corwin. This is my pechakucha assignment. I'm in the most secluded part of my house, but I do have a 6-month-old in the other room, so if you do hear some extraneous noise, that's her. I tried to control the scenario the best I could, so here we go. So, how to make shepherd's pie. I chose this because it's a nice instructional how-to, and I feel like the different parts of layering the dish make for a nice slideshow. And it actually fell together into 20 seconds very nicely. So here we go. What is a shepherd's pie? Well, as I mentioned before, it's a casserole, so it could be anything. You literally put anything you want, just as long as it's got meat, potatoes, and a little bit of cheese in there. It's traditionally an Irish dish, but most of all, it should be quick and easy. Cook the ingredients, layer them in a pie, get it in the oven, you're good to go. That's all it should be. Now my variations, I like to use an iron skillet instead of a casserole dish. I use mozzarella instead of cheddar cheese. I think it glues the layers nice together, and I like to taste the mozzarella. And I don't use a gravy. A lot of people will do that. I like to let my meat dry on the bottom because I get to taste everything else. The gravy doesn't sort of overpower everything. My ingredient list. You can see all my ingredients here. Ground beef, onion, garlic, seasoning. I'll go over that later, but you can use literally whatever you want. Potatoes, butter, and then some sort of dairy. I prefer half and half for the mashed potatoes. We'll go over that later. You can use skim milk, whatever you happen to have though. Now a cast iron skillet. They're heavy duty, but if you have one, please, please, please use it. You can brown your meat right in it, and then we can layer all of our ingredients right on top of it and throw it in the oven. The iron will not disintegrate in the oven. It's a really good tool. I recommend it for just about any kind of cooking, but it works really well for the shepherd's pie, so if you have it, use it. Step 1, you're going to start boiling the water. This is going to take the longest. You see I use a double broiler. Double broiler is really nice, cooks the potatoes evenly because they don't touch the bottom of the pan. This part's going to take the longest, so get your water going and then just kind of wait. You can salt the water too. Now chop the veggies. While we're waiting for the water to boil, it's a good time to get the vegetables chopped. I've outlined a process here because a lot of people don't know about it, about how to cut an onion and garlic. First you're going to make a hemisphere cut along the hairy side, then make some longitudinal cuts, and then you're going to chop down the little sections. It makes a perfect dice every time. Chop the potatoes. Little chunks, I've got the sizes there in the bucket to show you. You'll notice I do have a bucket of water. It works really nice to keep the potatoes from browning while you're cutting them. Browning will ruin the flavor and the textures of the potatoes, so you really want to make sure that you're not doing that. You can just drain the water off before you put them in the boiling pot. Potato variations, I like Idaho potatoes. You can use russet potatoes, baking potatoes as well. They're a little bit bigger. Try to stay away from the yellows and the reds if you can. I don't like their texture for the pie, but again, this is completely up to you. If you want softer potatoes on the top and not a crisp potato layer, by all means, go for the reds, go for the yellows, because they'll give you that. Now when the water boils, get cooking. You want to get the potatoes in the water, you want to turn the oven on, I like to turn on the broil setting, and you want to turn the burner with the iron skillet on to about medium-high heat. It's going to take the longest to cook the potatoes. By the time the potatoes are done, everything else should be done as well. Now sweat the small stuff. You want to throw the onions in and the garlic in, let them roll around in some olive oil. You're looking for tender and translucent here. If they get too brown, they're going to be a little sweet if you caramelize them too much. You can have that flavor profile if you want. It doesn't work for this flavor profile, so just sweat them nice and translucent. Now you're going to brown the meat. So throw in the meat. You want to throw your seasonings in, which I'll go in the next slide, on top of that. Just slowly brown them, slowly folding in all the ingredients, the seasonings, the onions, the garlic, until it turns a nice brown. You don't want to be completely brown yet, and I'll go over that later, but mostly brown, mostly done. Now different types of meat. I use lean ground beef here. You can use a beef with a higher fat content. You can see that on this label, the only fat content is 7%. It makes my meat dry, like I mentioned earlier. If you're making a gravy, you're going to want to use a beef with a higher fat content. You can do some research online on how to make the gravy with the fat, but now this is where the variety comes in. These are the spices I use to flavor the meat: salt, pepper, Worcestershire sauce, crushed red, onion, garlic, and paprika powder. This is my flavor profile. I add this directly into the meat as soon as it's ready to go cooking, but you can really use anything you want here. Experiment. If you have flavors that you like, things that you like with beef, now's the time to add them. And once all that potatoes are done, they should be fork tender. Take them out of the boiling water. You're going to need some sort of dairy product. I put a couple things here. I prefer the half and half, as much as strange as it seems. I just think it gives a better creamy texture to the potatoes. So you're going to add a couple tablespoons of butter, and then about half a cup of half and half. And then I prefer to use the little potato mashing tool here. You can see basically you just mash, mash, mash until it's a big pile of mashed potatoes. You can also use a beater or a whisk to make whipped potatoes. It'll be a lighter, airy texture on top of the pie. I prefer a little bit thicker crust. Again, all personal preference. Next, we're going to layer the pie. So add your veggies on top. I chose green beans for my veggies. You can literally use whatever you want. And then you're going to put your cheese choice. You see how the mozzarella kind of falls into the holes there? I think that makes a perfect glue to hold layers together. And then I use a rubber spatula and just kind of smooth the potatoes over the top. Butter. Butter's great. Beforehand, you could melt a couple tablespoons of butter. This is purely optional, and put that on the top of the pie like I've done here. And what that's going to do is it's going to soak into that top layer of potatoes and make the top nice golden brown and crispy. Very delicious. All right, then place the pie under the broiler. Move the rack to the highest setting it'll go, right under the heating element. This is going to help get that top layer nice and crispy. And basically, you're going to leave it in the oven until you get a nice golden brown crust, which will be on the next slide. And about 10-15 minutes or so. All right, this is what it looks like when it's done, and it's a really delicious meal. Let it sit for about a good 10 seconds after you take it out of the oven. It's going to be ridiculously hot, but also ridiculously good. It'll keep for about a week in the fridge, so just eat on it as you go. It's a great meal to feed you for a week, so enjoy. Well, that was my pechakucha assignment on how to make a shepherd's pie. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you get to make a shepherd's pie soon, and don't be afraid to experiment. Thanks for listening, guys.